In July 2012, fans eagerly anticipated the opening night of Batman: The Dark Knight Rises, with theatregoers of all age dressed in cosplay. The vibe at the theatre was great, and the movie started without incident. However, just 25 minutes into the movie, total carnage ensued when a heavily armed late-to-the-party viewer unleashed a devastating attack on the audience. The tragic consequences of the attack led to many deaths and multiple injuries. But who was their killer? And what was his motive? And how did his troubled past lead him down such a destructive path?
A full hour after the rampage began, the story broke over the airwaves. By then, 18 ambulances were there, triaging the victims and transporting the most serious cases to 6 local hospitals. 12 people killed and 58 injured.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Wherever you may be in the world right now, hello, my name is Lloyd, and right now, you're watching When Evil Follows. This case starts in California, in San Diego, known for its beautiful beaches and its coastal city, located in the southern area of California in America. San Diego is famous for its gorgeous beaches and perfect weather. The San Diego Zoo, Balboa Park, SeaWorld, and a hive of outdoor activities such as surfing, swimming, hiking, cycling, and rollerblading. And that's not to mention its vibrant diversity in food culture, exquisite sights, shopping centres, open restaurants, amazing hotels, and stylish properties, making San Diego a popular destination for residents and tourism. James Holmes was born on the 13th of December in the year of 1987 at the Sharp Grovemont Hospital in California to caring parents Arlene and Robert Holmes. Arlene Holmes worked as a registered nurse, and Robert was a successful mathematician who worked for various government agencies. Both parents worked exceptionally hard, whilst at the same time balancing out a normal family life, and, to be fair, they were both great parents. And yeah, all children had a comfortable childhood and never went without any of the important fundamentals. As a family, they enjoyed a healthy middle to upper class lifestyle in one of America's most beautiful cities due to his parents' decorum, hard work, and success. The family lived in a comfortably sized house, located in the Oak Hill area and not too far away from the beach. James as a young child was very happy and seemed no different from any other child his own age. And though he was young with much to learn, James would soon begin to show signs of above average intelligence, making it obvious to see that James was a highly intelligent kid and with much promise. He made many friends at school, including with the children in different classes. He was super popular and took a keen interest in everything creative, and throughout the oncoming years he would also take a keen interest in everything involving maths and technology. By the age of 11 years old, James learned basic computer programming, and by the age of 12 he created a website for the entire class at his school. James was a great kid and somewhat shy, and loved and trusted all the people in his life that he was close to. He loved his mum and dad, and he loved his siblings and friends, and yeah, things were looking up for James. Even his teachers at school were impressed with his mannerisms and his maturity and intelligence within the classroom. And even though he was somewhat quirky and not always entirely reserved, he would always be the first kid in class, demonstrating a deeper understanding for the subjects taken before anybody else in the lesson. And, according to some public statements online, and despite his quirky mannerisms, he was a grade A model student most teachers adored. Unfortunately, as soon as he hit puberty, his mental health would start to dip. And quickly, he began to develop a series of mental health conditions. He started seeing what he described as nail ghosts at night, hammering nails into his bedroom wall. He also told his parents he was seeing premonitions of buildings exploding and burning down to the ground. He claimed that he was seeing gun explosions and hearing gunfire coming from the corners of his bedroom. And being so young and unable to comprehend exactly what he was seeing or dealing with, I can only imagine how traumatic these complications must have been for him and his parents. He quickly started to self-isolate himself from friends and family, and even worse still, his condition began to worsen, and by the age of 12, he actually attempted in trying to end his own life. And given the fact that both parents were not the type to discuss their emotional feelings, and both come from a medical and science background, both parents believed that things would get better for James with educational structure and routine. At the age of 13, James and his family moved to a different area of San Diego, and no doubt marking an important turning point in his life at this time, purely because any move would have been a big deal for a young teenager, and this was especially difficult for young James. His difficulty in socializing was already apparent beforehand, and now with all his old school friends far away, he felt more alone than ever. His mental health regressed even further, as the local kids within the area were less than friendly towards him, and so James would turn towards video games to escape his lonely state of reality. As soon as James finished his day at school, he would return home spending all his free time playing computer games into the early hours, and it was by this point James' parents noticed this behaviour and were uncomfortable with the situation, and so it was at this moment in time James's mother decided to take matters into her own hands by asking the neighbours' parents if their children would be willing to spend some time with her son. Unfortunately, and despite her best efforts to help James find new friends, none of the children wanted to spend time with him, and as James moved into his middle teen years, he continued to suppress his depression and struggles, and after leaving school with decent grades, he then enrolled at the University of California, Riverside, and it was at this time he also found a part-time job, working as a counter seller in a summer camp. However, his supervisor noticed that he wasn't the easiest person to work with and described him as stubborn, uncommunicative, and sociably inept. And at university, many of the students around him also found his behaviour to be quite quirky, odd, and strange, easily finding any excuse or reasons to not want to interact with him, only adding more personal reasons as to why James never went out of his way to socialise with others. While at university in 2010, he found a second job at a bullet coating factory located in San Diego County. Again, it was nothing special, but it helped him support his way. These were trying and hard times for James, with many of the university students describing him as being one of the most recluse people they have ever met before, and this description described James's personality quite adequately, as James would often be seen in class just staring at the walls for minutes at a time, and barely responding to any questions or prompts by his tutor or university students alike. However, despite all this strange behaviour, James would eventually graduate with a bachelor's degree in neuroscience in 2010. And that same year, he then moved into his own apartment on Parish Street. He then pursued a PhD in neuroscience at the University of Colorado in Aurora. Still feeling lonely and empty inside, James took time out to sign up with POF, one of the most popular dating apps used in the United States for finding that special someone. And when all that failed, he would then frequently hire sex workers to compensate his lack of female attention. And with no change to his circumstances or lifestyle, it would be almost a full year later in October 2011 when James would finally get his lucky break. While sitting in biology class, he met a girl who found him highly intelligent and somewhat mysterious, and she liked his humour and quirky wit, and before not too long the pair would begin dating, enjoying days out and movie nights at the cinema together. James loved movies, especially superhero movies where the main character arises from a dark anti-hero background, such as Batman, Deadpool, or Iron Man, as James could relate heavily to these characters, often dreaming of himself starring in his own anti-hero movie on the big screen. And as James and his girlfriend enjoyed each other's company together, she would become more and more aware of his strange social behaviour. His sense of humour was somewhat awkward, and his controversial jokes would more often than not leave people feeling uneasy or lost for words, and given these factors were clearly too big for her to overcome, they both soon broke up in January in the year of 2012. A clear and obvious setback for James, as his mental health would now start to worsen even further, so he sought help at the Student Health Clinic at university. And over the next 3 weeks or so, James was seen a total of 8 times by Dr. Fanton, and it would be during these private sittings James would expose his demons for the first time in full, desperate for answers and a cure. However, upon hearing the demons that live inside James's head, Dr. Fanton was left with pure worry and concern. James had told her something so sick and devastating. She would not only worry for James's safety, but she would also worry for the safety of all the students as well. He told her he has these dreams and a strong urge and impulse to commit mass murder, using heavily armed explosives and firearms, and that the amount of lives taken in the attack would be the equivalent to the worth of his own life. Yeah, he truly believed, however many people were lost in this deadly fantasy, would be the worth of his own life, meaning if 50 people died, then he would be worth 50 lives. Crazy. And given the fact Dr. Fanton wasn't legally allowed to report or discuss anything said between them both, as everything discussed in these private sittings are strictly confidential, and these discussions fall under some sort of confidential mental health law, and because James never mentioned hurting anyone specifically, she wasn't allowed to intervene or contact law enforcement. However, she knew he had the potential to be extremely dangerous, but there was nothing she could do. It was simply a truly up situation, to say the least. My own personal views and thoughts about this situation definitely warrants a change in the law for extreme mental health issues and concerns, such as potentially saving many lives. But despite all of Dr. Fanton's concerns, she prescribed James on long-term antidepressant medications. Dr. Fenton also contacted his mother. Arlene told Dr. Fanton about James's long-standing mental health issues ever since he was a child. However, Arlene failed to tell Dr. Fanton that there was a history of mental health issues that ran through both sides of his family, and that James has had multiple members in the family who have suffered with both schizophrenia and psychotic breaks, and this hidden shocking information was pertinent. However, by this time it was already too late, as James had pulled out of university. His motivation and drive for education was now in limbo. He stopped caring about his university work and left university for good. And it wasn't just his academic side that was on the slide, because now he was rapidly declining and growing in depression, loneliness and psychotic mania. He was now alone and isolated, with no one to turn to. And now with no job and no degree to work towards, and with only his dark thoughts to keep him company, he continued his descent into darker places than the day he was in before. And no matter how hard he tried to fix himself, his demons were too strong. And it was in the late spring that same year when James Holmes began to plot and plan out his dark and twisted thoughts. And so, in the later weeks of May, he bought himself 4 weapons: a Glock 22 pistol and a Remington shotgun, a Smith & Wesson handgun, and an MP-15 assault rifle. And come July, he had amassed thousands of rounds of ammunition, 2 9-inch hunting knives and a tactical assault vest, a gas mask and 6 gas bombs. And it would be on the following night James would load up all of his equipment into the boot of his car. He then drove to the local Century 16 Complex movie theatre in Aurora. It was the premiere weekend to the highly anticipated The Dark Knight Rises, and the theatre was sure to be packed out to the maximum capacity. Here he is entering the cinema seen on the civilian cameras with dyed orange hair. Casually and calmly, James blends into the crowd, as he then walks up to the counter to purchase his ticket for the midnight viewing. Inside the theatre you can clearly see it's packed, with an estimated 400 people jammed into one room, all eager and excited to catch the first viewing of the movie. James was sitting in the front row of the movie and he watched the trailers before the movie started, and it was around 15 minutes or so into the movie he got up out of his seat and left the theatre through the emergency exit door just next to the movie screen. James had clearly been planning this attack for a while now, as he knew that the side door had direct access to the car park outside. He then propped the exit door slightly open using a cloth to ensure that he could enter afterwards. He then ran to his car, which was conveniently parked near the side door, and changed his clothing. And yeah, he changed into tactical clothing, all dressed in black, wearing a gas mask and a bulletproof vest, and a bullet-resistant helmet, a bulletproof throat guard, and a groin protector and protective leggings. Now at this point, many of the movie viewers saw James re-enter, but were unsure of what they were actually looking at, leading many people to believe it was just another fan dressed up in cosplay, just like many of the other fans there in the theatre, while others believed it was part of a public stunt set by the theatre management. However, no one in the crowd was expecting or prepared for what was about to happen next. In the blink of an eye, James turned and faced the crowd, wearing headphones with techno music pounding in his ears, totally zoned out. He begins throwing tear gas canisters into the crowd. James then points his shotgun at the audience and unbelievably unloads 10 shells into the crowd. And as those shots rang out, mass panic filled the room, with many people finding it impossible to breathe and see. And as a massive state of panic then broke out, James dropped his shotgun onto the floor and then pulled out a Smith & Wesson assault rifle and again began firing quick shots into the fast-moving crowd. Finally, after 75 shots fired, the gun malfunctioned, and that's when James pulled out a handgun, losing 4 more rounds into the audience. And it was now by this point in time, bullets were flying everywhere. The air was thick, full of poisonous gas, and the sound of screams echoed throughout the theatre. Customers were trying to hide and dive for cover, and others were running towards the exit in an attempt to escape the building. It was total carnage, as many people sat on the middle and back rows were now surrounded with bodies collapsing around them. And at the end of this horrific and awful nightmare, more than 76 shots were fired from 3 different types of weapon, and moments later many calls were made to the emergency services at 12:35 AM. And because of all the screams and loud noises, the operator couldn't really make out what was being said or what was going on, because of all the loud screams and shots being fired, along with the intangible voices of shouting and screaming over the movie that was blurring out in the background. It was just pure mayhem.
315 and 314 for a shooting at Century Theaters, 14300 East Alameda Avenue. They're saying somebody's shooting in the auditorium. 315 and 314, there is at least one person that's been shot, but they're saying there's hundreds of people just running around.
316, be advised. 6 somebody sprayed some gas over here too. 316, I need a rescue in here hot too. I got a guy shot.
And inside of Theater 9?
Just outside of Theater 9.
Team 6, we got another person outside shot in the leg, a female. I got people running out of the theater that are shot in room 9.
318, we also have another victim on the north side of this theater in the parking lot.
I'm being told that he's in Theater 9. From what I'm smelling inside, it sounds like it's OC maybe too. Get us some damn gas masks for Theater 9. We can't get in it.
14, we have a party in the car shot. Plate 240, John Zebra, Ida, it's Kia, light Kia.
Okay, copy. There's another victim in a white Kia. Where is that vehicle at?
16 Adam, I need a marked car behind the theater, Sable side. The suspect in a gas mask. 11, hold the air 1 second. Cars with that white car in the rear of the lot. Is that a suspect? Yes, we've got rifles, gas masks. He's detained right now. I've got an open door going into the theater. Okay, hold that position. Hold your suspect. 16, I got 7 down in Theater 9. 7 down. He's not working. He's coming out. Beacon 25 to everybody on this. It's an assault rifle. We have magazines down inside, so please watch out for the assault rifle. All right, so the guy's still in Theater 9. I'm working on the backboard right now for that female.
Okay, suspect is going to be a male, unknown race, black camo type outfit, believed to be wearing a vest, gas mask, and multiple long guns.
The police were immediately dispatched to the theatre, with law enforcement arriving around 90 seconds just after the first round of shotgun bullets being fired. And yeah, by the time they arrived, what they witnessed at the scene was nothing but pure hell. James left the theatre by the same side door, and using the mass confusion as cover, he made his way back to his car. However, just moments later, he was spotted sitting in his car by law enforcement. He was arrested at 12:45 AM, and just moments later, he was then taken away in the back of a police car, as it waved its way through the flashing lights and the sounds of wounded people. And once he was at the station, James then informed the police that he had left multiple booby traps at home at his apartment. Booby traps that were more than capable of inflicting maximum damage and claiming many more countless lives. So dangerous, in fact, an evacuation was ordered on James's flat, along with all other surrounding buildings. And with no chances to be taken, the police actually sent in robots to disarm all the bombs inside. The police found over 30 homemade grenades and more than 110 litres of gasoline. Unbelievably though, no one was harmed during this very unhinged and dangerous explosive situation. Unfortunately, the same couldn't be said for the victims whose lives were taken that night at the cinema. That night, James Holmes murdered 12 people in cold blood and severely injured more than 70 people in the attack, leaving the town residents of Aurora reeling in pain, sadness and anger. On the 23rd of July that same year, James made his first appearance in court. He was given no chance of bail due to the degree of destruction caused by his evil actions. The police also found a blue book belonging to James, and on the pages handwritten by James himself, the police found a deadly step-by-step plan of action. A plan of action he carried out that night at the cinema, accurately. On the other pages were short handwritten paragraphs demonstrating his world of confusion and the need to mass kill for almost a decade. This information was all put before the judge, along with the names and the photographs of the victims and the families, and family statements. Statements from the victims' families that were devastating for the judge to read. These intentional crimes to kill would eventually warrant the death penalty, and even though this case would be dragged out for a further 3 years, due to the legal complications of the Mental Health Act, the Mental Capacity Act, and other tributing factors. And in 2015, James' father took to the stand with his son's life in the balance and on the line. His father begged the judge to spare the death penalty. He was crying and even showing the judge photographs of James as a child on camping trips with family when he was happier and much more sound of mind. However, on the last day of the trial, James was found guilty of 12 counts of first-degree murder and found guilty of 140 counts of attempted first-degree murder and guilty of 1 count of possessing explosives. James Holmes was finally sentenced on 12 consecutive life sentences, with an additional added 3,381 years without parole. And despite many major disagreements within the court, James's life was spared. To this very day, James Holmes remains incarcerated and will remain behind bars for the rest of his life at the USP Allenwood in Pennsylvania. My thoughts and prayers will always remain with the victims and their family members that were so deeply affected by this awful and deeply tragic event. So let me know what you think to this case. Do you believe that certain laws on mental health and privacy need to change? And also, if you guys would like to see more content and get to know me better and gain more perks, including verbal shoutouts in videos, please check out my Buy Me a Coffee link below and subscribe there for more content. Also, should you wish to buy me a coffee and support the channel, I'd really appreciate that. But at the same time, hey, no pressure. And just by hitting the like button also really helps me and this channel grow. So hit the like button if you found this video interesting, and do subscribe to the channel for more weekly true crime horror. And with all that being said, please do look after yourself and stay safe, and I'll see you again real soon, the next time when evil follows. Bye.